nothing else, Paul Skenes is going to arrive with a full scope of the challenge he faces here. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Angels 5, Pirates 4 from yesterday. That means that the club completed a 9-game stretch against 3 of the worst teams in civilization, the Athletics, the Rockies, and these Angels, with a robust record of 3-6, and they never, ever, ever, ever at any point got going offensively. The strangest thing about the offense that they did get, or the wins that they did get, is almost all of it would come with a single swing, including yesterday, O'Neal Cruz's bases clearing triple. Now, look, you love to have that. I'm not knocking it, all right? But if you look at this lineup, this roster, this organizational roster, realistically, you understand that one swing outputs aren't going to be a solution for this franchise in any way, shape, or form. It just won't happen. It just won't happen. The overwhelming bulk of the at-bats, the overwhelming bulk of the innings are just zeros across the board. But the decision has been made, coincidence or not, at what just might be a low point of the season. And I mean that not just off the field where things couldn't be looking more bleak, but even on the inside where, the team could use a pick-me-up. I did not get the impression from team officials leading into yesterday that this had been some sort of predetermined or pre-circled date for Skenes to arrive. And in fact, if he wasn't going to pitch this coming weekend against the Cubs, then the Pirates would have been on the road for another week. He absolutely wouldn't have been starting or debuting on the road. That's just business suicide. So he would have gotten another 2 starts in Indianapolis, and he wouldn't have been damaged by it. They wouldn't have been damaged by it, but the decision's made. He's coming up. He's going to be here for a big Saturday matinee game, and right after Jared Jones goes, and whether that's to, douse the fire that's occurring off the field or try to light the fire that's not happening on the field, I don't know. And honestly, I really don't care that much about that component. Want to know what I care about? And I promise I'm not going to drag this into the Skenes start. I'm not really made up that way anyway. I think it's going to be a wonderful thing to see the kid pitching. I think it's going to be wonderful to see the ballpark completely packed, which it will be. And I think it's going to be and feel like a standalone event. The way we've seen in the past, where, a terrific prospect will come up, everybody gets all excited, but the team isn't going anywhere. In fact, when you get right down to it, that's what pretty much all of these have been, with the possible exception of Garrett Cole's. Cole came up just as the Pirates were becoming a playoff team. It was in June, so things were already going pretty well. They announced it like this a couple days in advance, so people knew to buy tickets and knew that they wouldn't miss it. But the overarching thing that you want when something like this occurs is nowhere near here. Who could conceivably be taking this team seriously? Who could, when they watch Skenes mow down the Cubs, and he will, wait till you see this kid, and they're getting all giddy about, the velocity counts that show up and the ugly swings that he'll get from some of the Chicago batters and the 2-strike clap, which occasionally does happen in Pittsburgh. It's not really a Pittsburgh thing, but it does happen. By the time the home team comes up to bat, it's going to be a good time for a bathroom break. The concourses should be filled. And that's the part that's really I'm going to get this. I'm telling you again, I'm going to get this out of my system today, okay? You're not going to hear this relentlessly. But this is year 5. You could have had Jared Jones come up and do what he's done. And Paul Skenes come up and do what he's going to do. And add that onto, Mitch Keller being the best version of himself the other night. And what still looks like it could be a very good bullpen. And all you had to do in year 5 of this front office, of this management team, of this field manager's tenure, is to not completely suck at the plate. That's all you had to do. You didn't even have to be average. You could have just been bad. Bad would be a monstrous upgrade over what we've seen over these last 3 weeks. I would imagine that if you're Andy Haynes specifically, you would give a limb right now to have your hitters just be bad. But they're not. They're historically bad. It's some of the worst offense we've ever seen the Pittsburgh Baseball Club produce, or I should say not produce. It didn't have to be that way. You could have signed a better first baseman when everybody wanted you to sign a better first baseman than Rowdy Tellez. That's not hindsight on my part. That's not where were you when. It wasn't just me either. As best as I can recall, the feedback to this program was very heavily in favor of putting forth a bunch of money into first base. Instead, they went and got a bargain because they wanted to show everybody how smart they are or how efficient they are, instead of just going and getting a ball player. My goodness, how much difference, not that this is all on Rowdy, to say the least, but how much difference would a productive National League norm first baseman have made to this team and to this season? Just picture that. And never mind the difference that could have been made by changing the hitting instruction or the hitting coach or the hitting philosophy after it hasn't worked yet under this front office and management. Can't have that either. It was more important to continue trying to show everybody how smart you are than to have a real live major league operation awaiting Skenes when he got here. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Mark, who says, DK, Nick Gonzalez is currently batting .358 in Indianapolis with an OPS of 1029. For his minor league career, he's got an OPS of 904. Alika Williams, who's slightly older than Gonzalez, has a career minor league OPS of 741. It doesn't take a mathematician to realize that that's a massive difference. My question is Williams' fielding that superior that you choose him over Gonzalez despite being a drastically inferior hitter? We know this organization doesn't value hitting, but even by their standards, this one's a head-scratcher. Mark, I haven't really brought another player into the Gonzalez discussion. When I look at Gonzalez, I don't look at his regular season numbers, as impressive as they've been. I definitely don't look at his career numbers in the minors, impressive as they've been occasionally in their own way. I just look at strikeouts. I look at someone who at every single level, including the majors, has struck out way too much. Now, to his credit, and this is important, he has struck out way less in 2024 for the Indians. Good for him, good for everybody involved. That's what needed to happen. For him to achieve that, but also to put up the numbers that he has, meaning it didn't impact in any detrimental way what he would normally do. It actually just apparently enhanced it. Again, awesome. All the applause in the world. But I could see realistically where everyone involved would be skeptical of this, and they would be waiting for, and you hear this sort of thing a lot in discussing development, and this is really more true in baseball than any other sport. There are points in the process at which, believe it or not, they want you to fail. They want to see something go wrong so that they see how you can get out of it at least once. Otherwise, what happens, and this did happen to Gonzalez previously in the majors, he got off to a terrific start when he first arrived, showed some really exciting potential, including from the power standpoint, and then he ran into a rough patch and never, ever dug out of it. Now, that is also an Andy Haynes hallmark. He has no clue how to get hitters out of ruts. All hitters get into ruts, but how quickly you get out of it ends up being a big, big defining thing in your career. Haynes' hitters will stay in that rut for a month, 6 weeks, 2 months. And if you're young, that lights off all kinds of other alarms, and then you end up going back down. So Gonzalez really hasn't had a slump this year. Maybe that's what they're waiting on. Maybe everything that I'm saying to you right now is giving them way too much credit. I don't see it as a Gonzalez versus Williams thing. I didn't at the season's outset, and I don't now. I have seen it as a Gonzalez versus Jared Triolo thing, and that does go back to spring training. When Triolo was told near the end of spring training that he was going to be a player on this team, that he was making the team, he also was told he was going to be starting at second base. And even though Triolo and Connor Joe and others were supposed to be kind of rotating in and out with Rowdy Tellez at first, I'm not sure what happened there at first base. I'm not sure why they went away from that. I do understand wanting to have Joe on the field more often. Joe is an everyday player right now. On this team, he's an everyday player with a crown on his head. But he also could very easily, and maybe from a better fit standpoint, be doing that in right field. This team doesn't need bonus glove work. This team doesn't need Williams' glove in the infield any more than it needs Michael A. Taylor's glove in center field, because it doesn't have leads to protect. It doesn't have runs that it needs to take off the board because it's not getting any of its own. And yeah, if you look at the Indianapolis statistical page, you'll see that it's not just Gonzalez. You'll see that it's Ji-hwan Bae, who could be up here making a bigger difference offensively. You might want to throw Leover Peguero into that, even though his standard power hasn't been in place. I mean, you could even, if you wanted to get crazy here, talk about Jake Lamb. Jake Lamb is 33 years old. He's a hanger-on, a classic hanger-on in the minors, but he's also been out of his mind down there. And please, don't ever bring up 40-man Rob, but you'd have to add him to the 40. Who cares? Who cares? This team's not good. Don't worry about who you're throwing off the 40. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.